Welcome to the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong, and today we have a great guest. He is an expert when it comes to working nearshoring and also crack the code in working overseas, especially having over 10 years of experience of doing so, especially in the US and USA and LATAM. He is somebody who's been able to support hundreds of companies all around the world. He and his team has been able to place 500 plus individuals and connections with LATAM and also US companies. He has built three companies from ground up, zero to $4 million annual revenue. He has been able to been featured on Fortune 500, Wall Street Journal, HuffPost, and also been on many different podcasts as well. So please welcome business leader, nearshore expert, entrepreneur, and investor, Mr. Brian Sampson.
I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for the nice introduction.
Well, awesome. Thank you very much for being here. Always joy speaking with people who are successful in what they do, and then also willing to share their success and their strategies as well. So much appreciated. So jumping right into it, how did you become this nearshore expert, and what exactly is that?
Yeah, so maybe let me start with definitions because I think that helps set the scene with your audience. So, almost everybody by now has heard of offshoring, and I'm based in the States, so we tend to think, in the States very like US centric in how we make our definitions. But a lot of these can be moldable depending on where you are in the world. So if you are based in the US, offshore usually means, the big three countries are Philippines, China, and India. And we tend to look at offshoring software roles to India, manufacturing to China, and of course, there's other countries available. And then the Philippines is usually the BPO call center of the world. But let's say your business was based in Singapore. You don't have to offshore to any of those countries. That's essentially nearshoring. So you're, not sacrificing time zone, but whether you're offshoring or nearshoring, you're generally looking at developed countries leveraging developing countries because there's like a price arbitrage there. And then if we go back to US centric, offshore is those major countries we just talked about. But in the case of the US, nearshoring is actually Latin America, which we sometimes refer to as LATAM. And in Latin America, you've got the same time zone. And it's interesting, it was kind of forgotten about for a long time. The US went straight to offshore. And then you look at Eastern Europe and then now Africa is emerging. But what was there like the whole time kind of sitting sitting in our backyard, and that's Latin America. And how I got into it, kind of wild, as we talked about Asia and Singapore. About 10 plus years ago, I was living in San Francisco, and my career was really as like a tech hiring guy. So companies would bring me on right after they raise capital. So think of like the venture capital funded tech startups that you hear all the time in places like San Francisco. If your audience has ever watched the show HBO Silicon Valley, that was kind of, my existence of, just crazy startup stuff. And typically, what would happen is a company would raise, say, $5 million, $10 million, or now we see these big numbers like OpenAI or Anthropic are raising billions, but um, most of that money, well, I guess in the AI world, most of that probably goes for data centers, but in traditional software, most of that goes towards talent. So about 70% of the funding would go towards hiring. And investors don't want their money sitting in a checking account. They want it spent. And that means you got to hire and you got to hire great people. So essentially, that was my world for a long time. And then I was kind of ready for something new. I wanted desperately to be an expat and have an expat experience. And I really wanted it to be in Asia. And I had done like some trips before. I was in a grad school program where I got a degree from UCLA, but also National University of Singapore and US. And for the U.S. audience that might not know, NUS is one of the better schools in Asia. So I thought that would kind of open my world up for expat experience. It didn't go like I thought, but I did connect with someone who was running a pretty large fintech, financial technology company in Shanghai, China. And you know, he didn't want to hire me to be an expat there because I didn't speak Chinese. But I think he liked my ambition, initiative, trying to like make stuff happen. So he said, "Hey, if you ever have any other ideas, let me know." And I came back to him in a month, and I had a thesis around fintech companies in San Francisco, New York, had access to lots of capital, great product visions. They were mostly finance guys building these, and they were pretty agnostic about how the technical stack looked, or the minimum viable product, or the prototype. So I said, hey, what if I had a company that could build all this, like basically a service software company that could build all these MVPs? And he agreed to fund me. So I raised $2 million. And San Francisco is a very expensive place. So $2 million would probably be gone in like, 2 months. So instead, I decided to put my software engineers in Argentina and sales in San Francisco. And my personality, I like to be involved. I don't want to just, delegate it. So I moved. I moved to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and that kind of kicked off a 10-year run of building businesses all over Latin America, supporting the US, and enriched in the talent and the volatility of the region and the inflation and everything. But that's what nearshoring is, and that's how I got into the world of it.
Very, very fascinating stuff, and uh, lots of jumping into like brand new experiences that most people probably are too afraid of doing. Like for you to go, hey, let's build companies outside of my home country. Lots of people are afraid of just building companies in their own country. So, what's the biggest difference between that? Because there's language barriers, there's cultural differences, all that kind of stuff. How did you navigate through all that?
You know what's funny is when I look back today, I was like, that was pretty crazy what I did, because it's kind of like, entrepreneurship is hard enough. And it was like entrepreneurship on hard mode, So like, or when I was a kid, I would play video games and you could select like rookie, veteran, pro, or like all-star, and I'm like, why was I picking all-star? This is so hard. But yeah, it wasn't easy, uh, although English is spoken pretty widely in a place like Argentina, and the quality of English is mind-blowing. Like it sounds like you're just talking to anybody in the States. They know all the slang and the colloquialisms and like the speech, and they love US politics and US pop culture. But there's still a lot of business that's done in Spanish, and so I had to kind of navigate that, figure out how to set up payroll, which is much different, and legal, which is much different, and accounting, and office space, make the first couple of hires, which then kind of multiplied. So it was much more difficult. Um, but I think, when you were so maybe there was two things. When you are getting your first company off the ground, say in your home country, and for me that's the States. I think the best advice I'd give anybody is entrepreneurship is compounding. Benjamin Franklin would often talk about compound interest is like the eighth wonder of the world. You think of like the pyramids and the Great Wall of China, as wonders of the world. Well, compound interest is like the eighth wonder, but compound learning is kind of the same thing. So as an entrepreneur, you're learning at such an enormous rate compared to most jobs. And all that knowledge and accumulation goes back to you to use tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So whether you're doing it in your home country or you're crazy like me and you want to try it in a different country, remembering that all that's really compounding for you. And I'd say I really just had blinders on because it was I had had like a few dabbles in entrepreneurship, but this is like the first kind of big move. I raised money, I had an investor, I had this mandate. So part of it was just like brute force, will, you kind of need this almost like ignorance or arrogance or whatever you want to call it, that I'm going to make it work no matter what, brute force, and totally oblivious to it was actually kind of a hard thing what I was trying to do, but I was just oblivious to understanding that.
Mm. Did you integrate yourself into like the society and then also have like close people in place before you actually made the move? So that at least culturally and like familiarity, you had people to kind of fall back on or bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, great question. So, before I officially moved, I had interviewed and hired a couple people that I met on a prior trip. So I knew that there was going to be some scale in this business. So the very first person I hired was a senior recruiter who kind of knew the lay of the land. And a lot of people wait to hire recruiters, especially in your home country. You kind of hire who you knows or who your cousin recommends
Mm.
or whatever. But I hired a recruiter because obviously I didn't know anybody there. And then second, I hired kind of like an operations manager to help me navigate a lot of like the minutia and understanding the kind of the fine print of doing business there. And Argentina, unlike a place like Singapore that I referenced, where Singapore, it's low to zero corruption, black and white rules and policies. You know where you stand. You can launch a business in 4 hours. Argentina, you're kind of just crossing your fingers all the time because you don't know what's going to happen. So I needed those two people. So they were there kind of working for a month before I moved there. Um, and then and I think your other question, if I remember, so it was like, did I hire people locally? And if you could remind me the other.
And basically have people to lean on. Like for instance,
Yeah.
dealing with government officials, permitting,
Uh,
all that kind of stuff. Like jumping into a place that you don't know. Sometimes you
yeah.
go, well, is this common? Because this
Yeah.
is not how we do it, kind of thing, right? And then sometimes you
Yeah.
might even ask, well, is this legal? Because I don't
Yeah.
know. It's like lots of things may be kind of blurry for somebody
Mhm.
who's not used to that environment. How did you
Yeah.
navigate through that? And then was it somebody that was kind of by your side the entire time to go, oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
don't worry about it, kind of thing.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me of the question. Um, so I'll just give like two kind of like these are small but true examples. So in the US, if you're and I, worked for a bunch of these tech startups. Let's say we were hiring 20 people next month. Not crazy for a tech startup that's growing. And we needed, 20 laptops. You just, like swipe your American Express card, and in 3 days, you've got a big box of 20 laptops, right? Um, not really the case in a place like Argentina where they don't do stuff on credit. It's pretty wild. Like you actually have to have the real cash instead of buying stuff on credit because nobody trusts each other. It's a low trust society. So I'm like, whoa, wait, okay, so we actually got to use our cash today and hope that we get the product tomorrow, which was interesting. And then even things like to sign a contract, I needed to put my passport number on the contract, and I'm like, wait, this feels kind of weird. Like, I felt uncomfortable, but I had people advising me all along, like, yes, we know it's not how business is done in the US. Trust us, this is just how they do it. So I had to rely on a lot of advice to navigate that.
I like how you said that. What, you need cash now and hope that I may get the thing tomorrow? So, okay. I can only imagine that during those first few weeks, few months, whatnot, it's gonna be very, very stressful. Sleepless nights and whatnot. And how did you deal with that stress? How did you go, you know what, this is weird, but I'm still gonna push through, or it's gonna work versus, oh God, I gotta cut the cord and kind of go back to what I'm used to. Like how did you kind of maintain course?
Yeah, I think there was maybe three pieces there. So the first is thankfully I wasn't doing it alone. I had brought my wife with me. Now we have a family, but at the time it was just us, just me and her, and so I could have a confidant, all the time at night, like, oh my gosh, I'm navigating this, and she wasn't in the day to day, but she would just kind of hear my stories. And sometimes you just need to like, I'm so frustrated by this, and have somebody you can talk to. I think the other things that I'll say are Argentina is a really nice country to live in. Um, there's a lot of business volatility, and that makes me sometimes refer to it as the most first world of the third world. Um, and but if you go there, you feel like you're transplanted in Paris, this beautiful architecture, tree-lined streets, buzzing cafes on the streets, all these different neighborhoods, some are ultra modern with skyscrapers, others are kind of old classic. They've got a massive subway system, and then you've got these instead of like the giant supermarkets like we're used to in the States, where you go to in California, say Safeway for everything. Um, it's like Europe, you go to the butcher shop for your meat, you go to the fruit guy for your fruit, you go to the bread person for your bread, and we got to know all these people and just kind of immerse ourselves in life. So even if the business week or month or day was, making you go crazy. Um, this like other side of experiencing this beautiful quality of life. And I'll even go one step further. The way that they do dinner there is incredible. Um, I was coming out of, 5 years in San Francisco where it's, quick meals so you can get back to your laptop, or even DoorDash, and then you just sit there, in front of your laptop the whole time. Um, and San Francisco's even got it down to a science, of like the special engineered drinks you drink with all your calories, so you don't have to leave your seat. Um, but then you go to a place like Argentina where no one has their phones on the table. Everyone is interested in your day, what you think about this issue, current events, politics. They debate. They're so family oriented and friendship oriented. And these dinners are 3, 4 hours on a Tuesday, not like a Saturday, on a
I
Tuesday.
got
And
stuff to do.
yeah, but it took me a little while to kind of like, what am I going to talk about for 4 hours? To um, I'm enjoying this. This is relaxing. So um, I wasn't working 20-hour days or having sleepless nights. I was stressed during the day, but I think I really quickly kind of learned you can shut this off a little bit and like just have this amazing experience of a different culture, different food, different people, amazing wine, all this, and it makes you forget about your stress for the day.
I think that's a very, very good, great skill set to actually have because lots of people aren't able to turn it off and they're go, go, go until something else happens and either their health deteriorates, they lose connection with their families and relationships because they don't know how to turn it off. And for you to be able to learn that and kind of be forced into that experience because everybody else is doing it, it's a
Yeah.
it's a great way to learn, I guess. So fast forward to today, because right now we're on Zoom. Lots of stuff is online, lots of stuff is virtual. Is it still the same thing as before? If you were to do that now, would you still have been traveling all this time and living there, or would everything be virtual? And if you did travel now, does that stick you apart from others who aren't willing to travel?
Yeah, great question. Gosh, that's a really great question because I haven't thought about that in the context of today. If I were to start a brand new, um, I definitely travel a lot less today. So usually I'll do like one trip a year. Um, and also, having young kids impacts that. I don't want to be away too long, from seeing their development. So I think I was just in a really fortunate time where this is all pre-COVID. Um, and I didn't have kids, and I had time and energy, and this kind of bullheadedness, I guess. Um, but I really think so. Here's maybe how I'd answer this. Um, it's almost like a could and a would. I probably could build a business entirely on Zoom, but would I? If I were somebody that was maybe listening and got inspired by the show and didn't have a young family, I probably would travel and live in this country so I could truly understand it. In fact, as I look at the nearshore ecosystem, so I wish I could say we were the only company in the world that does what we do. We had a monopoly, but that's not the case. We have other competitors. But there were quite a few companies that popped up that maybe saw some of the gold rush aspects of Latin America. The 2020s are really the decade for this region. And you had a lot of US entrepreneurs, maybe they're from Boston or Texas or California, that wanted to make some money off this Latin America push. And you could tell right away they didn't have the firsthand experience. So they didn't really understand the nuances and the culture. For them, it's just, transactions. And they didn't last. A lot of them went out of business. And I think this is one of my superpowers is I have this like firsthand experience I can talk to customers about. And my business partner has the same thing. It just happened to be in Monterrey, Mexico. So we have this ability to share our expat experiences and what the steak tasted like, and um, the ganancias, which are the taxes, or the aguinaldo, which is the 13-month salary, and the nuances of the pension system and the crazy taxes, but also this benefit. So I think it allows us to be a little bit more than the ChatGPT advice and talk about our real stories. And I would recommend people get the real stories and learn on the ground today.
I think in the end, everything's a people business, right? As long as you're
Yeah.
able to build relationships, build rapport, anything could really happen. So would you say that you were born as a people person? Like a person who is an extrovert, willing to go out there and socialize and all that kind of stuff? Or was that something that you kind of force yourself into developing because you realized that that's what you needed?
Oh, it was forced 100%. Yeah. Gosh, I get so jealous probably sometimes of people that are just so easy with people and so natural, and that's never been the case for me, and when I take those personality tests, I think like there's a disc, but there's a derivative. It's like a taking flight, where you break yourself into birds, and but I'm always like this like extreme, usually people are a blend, like a little extroverted and a little conscientious and a little, aggressiveness. But for me, it's I'm like kind of 100 in one bucket and 000 in the others, or like if you think in like video games, where you have like uh um this might date everybody, but there was a game like called Ice Hockey way back on the original Nintendo, and you could have like this you have your
Really
choice
skinny
of
guy,
skaters.
the
That's
big
right, you
guy,
remember. Yeah,
and the
yeah,
middle
you
guy.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. You remember. Oh, that's so cool. So, that was me. I was like the fat guy that, could like knock everyone over, but I had zero skills in anything else. So
So you're one of
So
those guys who makes the team of four of all fat guys.
that's right. Yeah, that was me. So I had to like really be intentional to try to round out my skill set.
Mhm. So you mentioned the whole being able to relate and be able to share stories that sets you up differently than some of the competitors out there. So aside from that, what else makes you and your team so much better than your competitors when you're placing people, connecting people, and whatnot?
Yeah, we really try to straddle both continents, North America and South America. So, US companies are our customers, and they want to play by the same rules that they're used to, right? So they want to have US contracts, they want to have US invoicing and bank transfers and
Mm.
just under like onboarding, like it all has to feel like they're doing it in the States. Because if it feels like they've got to deal with all the Wild West of Latin America, it gives them pause. So we have legal entity there. We, do all of our business there. And then we have all the infrastructure south of the border. So we have the ability to move machines and hardware all throughout the continent, which is no small feat when you've got tariffs and customs and all sorts of things that kind of get stuck and you can't, get them to the right person. We're so used to like Amazon Prime and then, our thing gets there the next day. It's so much harder there. And we've got the recruiters down there that can, speak to them and then speak to the candidates in their native language, but also validate their English skills. So our recruiters are very bilingual as well. And then from an onboarding standpoint, uh, not only are we really, really good at getting candidates up and running and acclimated to their new client and environment, but by the opportunity for that candidate who just started to check in with us in their native language, it's really amazing what they'll tell us versus what they might tell their client. Because in the client, it's more formal, it's in English. Um, so, everything's fine, but everything's not fine, like they're waiting for direction, they're waiting, like they don't have access to this tool, they're waiting, so like they'll share all that stuff with us so we can fix it. But if they don't say anything and the client doesn't know, it quickly goes off rails. So, the firsthand experience, the different entities and infrastructure, the experience knowing how to make this happen across a wide variety of Latin American countries, the advice, I think all that really sets us apart from our competitors.
Would you be able to share with us the most common type of scenario in which you help a US company do this connection and then like numbers wise, like are they making this much more? Are they saving this much more? What does that
Yeah.
kind of look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say we really have two types of customers. We have smaller businesses that are maybe making their first or second hire of someone outside of their country, and they're looking for some leverage. They don't have $1 billion in the bank, so they want their cash to count, right? And what we'll do is understand their budget, what do they want to do with hardware, how long, how many hours, all this, and kind of advise them, okay, based on what you need, I would say Lima, Peru is the place. Or I would say Sao Paulo, Brazil, or Florianopolis, or wherever, kind of navigate them. And the other type of customer is what I call a mid-market business or a late-stage venture capital funded company. And here, they're not looking for one hire, they're looking for many hires, and they're looking to build a team quickly. It could be QA, it could be software developers, it could be marketing people. Just this wide, they want to be able to get quick ROI. And they're looking at things like efficiencies and they're looking at flexibility and they're looking at optionality. So a little bit different from that small business owner. And, we're able to serve these two segments quite well and we can move quickly. Um, in terms of like cost, so if cost is the number one most important thing, it's very difficult to beat Asia. And I would actually recommend companies if they come in, maybe they've got a number in mind. I'm like, I don't think we can do that. I don't try to force anything. And in fact, I'm even an investor in a similar company of mine in the Philippines, and I'll refer, business over there. But there's a little bit of a trade-off, where I think the Philippines especially, um, and I'll hear this time and time and time again. It's just not my opinion. It's a lot of customer opinions that um, they love their team in the Philippines, but the requirement of them is that they have a very clear step by step by step process that they can have the team in the Philippines follow. Um, Meanwhile, when I look at myself as a business owner and your audience, and you could probably get the sense like I say yes and then I figure stuff out. I don't, it's like, fire and then aim, right? Like, I
If
don't,
you if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have gone to Argentina in the first place.
that's right. Yeah. So I don't really think, I just do. And, um, I think I owe, where I am at life to that. Um, But I don't think I'm alone. I think more entrepreneurs than not, more business owners than not are, fire and then aim. So that means they're not thinking about like everything's got to be a process and step by step. And this is where Latin America is really interesting because you've got a whole population that kind of thrives on figuring stuff out because they're dealing with a lot of governmental, geopolitical, economic volatility and things that they can't control, and they've got to find workarounds, and they're perfectly fine with that, taking chaos and making that calm. Um, so if you were looking at just pricing generally, the US is the most expensive. Latin America is kind of in the middle. We take our ice hockey example, it's the middle guy. And then, Asia, but, when I think about like software, it's the Philippines, manufacturing, China, and back office, call center is the Philippines. Um, that's going to be the least expensive. And you just have to ask yourself of if I am a process person, I've got it all clearly labeled, go to Asia. You're ready to maximize that. If you don't quite have all this figured out, um, you might prefer Latin America. And there's also this element of everybody's got the same workday. The sun's up for everybody at the same time. And I think that goes a long way, when you're trying to get work done.
Yeah. Now, in for this arrangement to work best, is there a particular industry that is best suited, or service or product?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've really worked across a large variety of industries. Product companies, tech companies, service companies, financial services, legal, health tech. Um, any business that needs labor arbitrage, leverage. Um, and we can cover a lot of ground in the types of roles. Um, I will say maybe just the extremes are where we don't get a lot of requests for. So it's not necessarily the industry, but just, the levels. No one's really coming to Latin America for the most junior person, who just graduated. And they're also probably not going to Latin America for their CFO, right? But there's a lot of roles in the middle. Latin America also has first and second line leaders that are very good at managing, and so you don't have to worry about having 20 direct reports. You hire one or two leads, and they'll kind of run the team for you. So all the individual contributor roles, the early leadership roles, wide variety of industries, wide variety of positions.
Is there a larger learning curve? Because like for instance, like once you get this in place, what's the turnaround like? How long does it take for an actual impact to be seen? Because even though if you're hiring somebody within locally, there's that 3 month kind of probation time, but then it's really not after 4 or 5 months that you go, okay, they're integrated, they're comfortable. Is that any different than having somebody somewhere else?
Yeah, I think part of it is like how you think about the role, how you think about the problem that you're building. So generally with software developers, um, there's a bigger investment, that you're making. Now the good thing is, and I think this is something we didn't touch on, but the attrition is really low in Latin America. Um, there's loyalty there. They're not taking calls like, oh, I can get an extra dollar an hour or whatever. They really just kind of put their heads down. There's not a whole lot of turnover there, and it's really nice. Where I remember, as in my head of recruiting days at these startups, and man, like we were lucky to get somebody to stay 18 months. And if you were a software developer, that's 3, 4 months of getting acclimated,
Yeah.
just like you said, and ramped up and learning the code base and the architecture and the trade-offs and the tech stack. So if you're going to make that investment and somebody's out the door, and a few months later, oh my gosh. So I would really consider that, and the cost and the longevity. But there are other roles where you don't quite need that massive time investment, say like a social media person
Yeah.
or a VA or a call center. You're going to get impact, in the first week or two.
Well, that's very, very impressive. Now, with AI becoming a really, really big thing, how has that impacted what you do?
I love this question because my LinkedIn feed, like most people's, is just filled with stuff about AI all day, every day. And it's easy to kind of forget. Um, but what I think we lose sight of sometimes in the States is we're not the only country that has access to this stuff. Gosh, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, all the different tools, Copilot. These are everywhere. They're all over. It doesn't matter if it's a developing country or a developed country, they're everywhere. So I like to think about Latin America, where you already have this um, population that understands kind of craziness and not everything has been figured out. So they're comfortable with that. So you're already getting this arbitrage of less expensive labor than the US, but able to think critically and creatively. And then you also arm them with AI. This is going to be the most productive region in the world.
That's that's gonna be very scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're gonna get a lot of productivity and you're gonna also save a lot as well. Like if you multiply what you can do now with AI by so many more people activating it, then it's gonna obviously get you more return in the end. So looking back, well, not looking back, but as of right now, what are you looking for? Is there specific people, individuals, partners, ventures, clients that you're looking for that you are able to either help or help you?
Yeah. Right now we are we from a client standpoint, if you're a mid-sized business and you're thinking in terms of teams, but you want some efficiencies, I would love to have a conversation with you. And then secondarily, my schedule almost all day long, as well as my partner's schedule, are just filled with intro calls and people that are what I call nearshore curious. They keep hearing about Latin America, LATAM, and what's going on there. Should I be hiring there? What countries? I don't know. What does it cost? Do I need to have an office there? They're all kind of curious about this stuff. We do these calls all the time. They're educational calls, they're fun calls, they're no obligation. So anybody listening that's what I call nearshore curious, I'm happy to make time to chat with you, no strings attached.
Awesome. Well, much appreciate and thank you for that. Now, let's say we put you on the world stage and you have a couple of minutes to share either a life lesson, a message that you want people to remember Brian for. What would that be?
Uh, not business. My wife and I are big advocates for foster care. So we became licensed foster parents. We live in Hawaii, licensed foster parents, and right like a month before the pandemic started, we started our journey there, got licensed, and then fostered a little baby girl, who was 6 months old when we took her in, and fostered her for 2 years, and then adopted her. So she's now this, thriving, almost 6-year-old girl with a giant smile and lots of energy. But it really changed our lives, and uh, my big mission, kind of post entrepreneurship is there are 440,000 foster kids in the US. And that means a lot of kids that didn't pick their environment and need a safe place. They need a loving family, all the things that I took for granted, I guess in my childhood, growing up in the Midwest. These are all things that they're hurting for. So if you have it in your heart, I would encourage you to check out the nearest foster care office, in your city, state, or country, and just remember that these kids need your help. And I would love to take some of my recruiting skills later in life and recruit more foster parents because the world needs more homes, the world needs more foster parents to take care of these kids that didn't pick their environment, but need all the love they can get.
What would you say would be a typical traits or environment that uh, individuals should be or have that makes great foster parents?
Honestly, just a loving home. I think we sometimes make it so much about like I've got to be in a certain financial place, or I need to have a certain structure. I've got to have made it this far. Um, but anyone who is ready to open their hearts and you're a good person, I think those are really the only requirements.
Right. Well, thank you very much, and very, very important thing to talk about, and very, very also integral in our future. Because, as you said, these kids didn't have a choice. It is an environment that they grew up in, and if there's anybody who's willing to really open their homes to them, it's something that it's impact for life. So, thank you for sharing that. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you some quick fire, rapid fire
Yeah.
questions. If you give me the first thing that comes to mind, you're stranded on the desert island, one food to eat for the rest of your life. What would that be? No consequence.
Oh my gosh. Rapid fire chocolate chip cookies.
Hollywood calls and goes, "Hey Brian, we love your story. Very inspirational. We would love to do a biopic of you. Who would you cast to play you?"
I think looks wise, it's probably Jason Segel from How I Met Your Mother.
Jason shows up at your door and goes, "Hey, I got casted to play you. Let's hang out." Oh boy, I'm hungry. And you go, "No worries, Jason. Come over here. I got the special dish prepared for you. What's that special dish?"
I love preparing steak now. After living in Argentina, where steak is so amazing, I love trying to make it as much as possible the Argentine way.
Nice choice. You're on a road trip, hours on end, one song to listen on repeat.
Oh my gosh. Um, I'll say Top Gun anthem.
Oh, wow. Good
Yeah.
pull. I almost expected you to say that song that Jason Segel was in his car, though I will walk 500 miles.
Oh,
Just because it kind of linked. But
that's a
anyway,
good call out. I like the pop culture references here. These are good.
give me a number from 1 to 4.
Four.
One, two, three, four. So the word is martial arts. So
Okay.
if you have to use martial arts as a metaphor for success, how is success like martial arts?
Oh, you gotta chop off the stuff that doesn't matter.
Nicely done. So that's how success is like martial arts. Thank you very much again for your time, sharing with us your experiences and also giving us some insight into foster care as well. So much appreciated. Any final words from you and best way to contact you?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is a really nice show, really, really well done. My email is Brian, Brian, at plug, dot tech, tech. And that domain is the same domain for our website. So plugg.tech. And there's a contact us form. Anybody that's curious about Latin America, happy to make time for you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So, anybody out there that fits what Samson is an expert in and thinks that he can help you out, make sure you give him a call and connect with him. Thank you very much. Until next time, he's Brian. I'm Fong. Today is the day to lock your peak potential. We'll see you later.